Hey, welcome back to Innovate Africa. And as you know, we focus on innovative businesses that impact lives on the African continent. It's not just a throwaway phrase or sentence. No, these are businesses who fix real challenges on the ground. And normally when we discuss innovation, we tend to discuss fintech, health tech, ed tech. Today, though, we focus on HR tech. It's something that you would not have heard too much about. Why? Because this industry or that segment still leaves a lot to be desired. There's a lot that can still be done to turn HR on its head from an innovation perspective. And today I'm going to introduce you to one such company. They're turning things on its head. It's called Gem HR, and you're joined by Simon Ellis. And by the way, they focus specifically on deskless workers. What does that mean? Well, Simon, you'll tell us about that. But first, I'm very keen on finding out more about your personal journey that led you to Gem HR. Just give us some insight into that.
I said this morning, or actually last night, to someone that I've tried and failed to build 20 different things. I launched a sock business called Flamingo Socks. I tried an e-commerce store, and I tried to launch something on Amazon. I had a business called Green Mamba, which is a recruitment business, recruiting South African CAs to London. I've tried everything. Some have failed, some are still around. In a very simple form, but I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to build things. I've always wanted to solve niche problems or big problems. And I think actually the key was finding the right person to do it with. I always did it previously alone, and I got lucky in finding an amazing co-founder.
So what are some of the key lessons that you've learnt on this journey?
Probably the biggest one is just persistence. Honestly, I think 10 of the things that I tried could have worked, but I just didn't spend the time going through that first hurdle, second hurdle, third hurdle. And we've had the same thing at Gem. You know, there's been multiple times where you could have given up. So I think the biggest thing was actually just continuing, pushing through, knowing that it doesn't get any easier, knowing that this is just a game of firefighting. It's one problem to the next, and instead of seeing problems as problems, you see them as opportunities. It becomes a very, very different way of viewing what you're doing. I also think really importantly, it's about finding a problem that resonates with you. So in Gem's case, I'm passionate about solving the problem we're trying to solve. Previously, I was working on, I had a photography, not a photography app. I tried to, for marathon runners, help people get cheaper marathon photos through using individuals on the road. But I'm not actually that big into photography or marathon runner photography. So while it was a good thing to learn from, I never wanted to do that long term.
Now let's hop into the heart of Gem HR. I'm sure you're going to tell us what you do, but I want to know why you get out of bed in the morning. What is the reason for existence when it comes to Gem HR?
I hope that I walk here next time in 5 years' time and the security guard at the door pulls me aside and says, you're from Gem, hey, you helped me save 500 Rand this month because I have cheaper funeral insurance, because I have cheaper access to credit, because I have cheaper access to mobile data, mobile phones, because we've used a payroll deduction and WhatsApp to give people access to more affordable financial services and products than they can get on the open market. And I hope that people recognize that we succeed when the deskless employees across the country save money every single month.
Okay, but I'd really like you to explain that to me like a 12-year-old.
There is a market in South Africa that's massive, 2 trillion Rand market cap between 7 companies, the 5 biggest banks, the 2 biggest telcos. The majority of that value has been built off the back of deskless workers, people that run the economy, your security guards, your manufacturing people, your cleaners, your miners. And in order for those people to be served financial products, there's 3 problems. Number one, acquisition cost is very high. So to get a product into the hands of a customer, you need branches, you need staff. Number 2, credit risk is very high. They are typically the default rate is very high. And number 3, collection effort is very high. So collecting money through, for example, debit orders is costly and often doesn't work. Gem exists to solve those 3 problems, leveraging WhatsApp and a payroll deduction. So we can reduce acquisition cost, reduce collection effort, and reduce credit risk using WhatsApp, because we connect employers with their employees on WhatsApp, and a payroll deduction because we change employee risk to employer risk, and we pass on the savings to the employee.
Let's focus on the competitive landscape though. What exactly does that look like?
So if you think of Sage, great business focused on payroll, focused on accounting software, not focused on solving for deskless employees. If you think about SimplePay or any of the payroll softwares, none of them are focused on solving for deskless employees. And then if you think of the banks, all of them are focused on creating value, but to get to the deskless employees, it's expensive. So we're trying to combine, and the way I often kind of describe it is, think Sage meets Capitec, but significantly more user-friendly and affordable for the deskless employee.
How do you keep the bigger companies at bay though? How do you protect your turf? I'm thinking of companies like Capitec or Sage. I mean, after all, they've got very deep pockets.
Let's play this out practically.
Yeah.
So when does Capitec receive money from a customer? At month end. When does Gem receive money from a customer? Anytime during the month. That's before Capitec. That's before any bank. If you have the ability to access capital before anyone else, you become the first place that an employee can spend their money. And if you can offer them more affordable services to do so, you're sitting on a very, very powerful value proposition.
You've spoken extensively about the employees, but in order to get access to those employees, you need to convince the employers. So take me through the employer value proposition.
Employers don't want to get into the minds of what employees are spending their money on. But the reality is, using a payroll deduction and using WhatsApp, we can offer employees access to more affordable financial services. So in the employer's hands, most people are low wage. It's very difficult to give them any other sort of increase in their wages. We give them the unique ability to put more money into the hands of their employees without costing them anything. We help employers streamline their HR workflows using WhatsApp. So we plug into their existing systems and help them digitize their HR processes, sending out payslips, sending out documents, managing queries, managing leave. And we do that all at zero cost. And once we're in, we offer more affordable financial services using a payroll deduction. So we deliver via WhatsApp, we collect via payroll. Employers save significant time and money using GEM and have a more digitized operation. And employees save significant time and money using GEM because they're getting access to more affordable products.
Let's talk about scaling this to make it financially viable, because I imagine you need scale when it comes to deskless workers. How do you decide what you do and what you don't, what you touch and what you leave alone?
So we're a B2B2C business. The employer is our gatekeeper. So first and foremost, we've got to make sure that the employer is comfortable with the value proposition that we're putting forward. In our case, and we've gone through a long iterative journey to get to a point where we've actually created real value for the employer. We have helped digitize their HR and create value for their employees. So the first is, can we get into enough large employers to get access to their employees? That's the first piece. So we call that distribution. The second is, once you've got distribution, once an employer says, I'd love to use GEM, we need to figure out, can we get activation? Can we activate those employees and get them using the product? So GEM, across our best employers, has 95% plus activation. That means that when you launch with a 5,000 person workforce, 95% of them are signing up, and we typically get up to 70% within the first 6 weeks. That's the goal. Once you've activated, that's great because you've now shown value to the employer. You've connected employers with employees, but then you've got to monetize. And the monetization comes in two ways. The first is if we've digitized HR workflows specifically custom to the employer, that's a SaaS product. And then on the employee side, we're giving them access to more affordable financial services, and we're taking a clip of in doing so.
We can't escape the traction question, so give us an insight to your traction.
So we've got access to 150,000 employees, 126,000 are registered and using the product every single month. It's about an 83% registration rate across the base. And we are close to $2 million of ARR. We are growing, depending on the month, anything from 5 to 20% month on month. And I think the most exciting piece is, for the first time, we have real product market fit with employers. They absolutely love what we have and are starting to see real value from it. But the best part is the monetization angle on the employees is still 20x. We can still 20x our existing base with products. And when I say 20x, I'm not trying to monetize an employee for, I can literally offer them better products, replacement products for then what they're already paying for. Let me give you an example. Funeral insurance. The employees that we work with are paying between 500 and 600 Rand for a funeral insurance product that should cost 200 Rand. We can offer it to them for 200 Rand, putting 300 to 400 Rand back in their pocket every single month. Who wins? GEM, the employer. The employer. Who loses? The banks, the insurance providers.
Now, I recently saw that Next 176 invested in GEM HR. Now, I'm sure you agree with me, just taking investment from everybody or anybody doesn't help a business. There's got to be some strategic value to that investment. Let's unpack the strategic value that the Next 176 investment has for GEM.
GEM is going hard into employee benefits. So we have three parts to our platform: HR, communications, and employee benefits. Next 176 is a subsidiary of Old Mutual. Old Mutual is the biggest employee benefits provider in South Africa. They've got access to 600,000 employees. And that book makes them 3 billion Rand of profit every single year, public information. We have access to 150,000 people already. We just haven't monetized that base. They are clearly seeing us as an opportunity to increase their distribution and help employers. We've got the best digital distribution channel in the country, and we have the best collection method in the country. We're working together to now scale our distribution of both distribution to employers and distribution to employees.
One doesn't just knock on the door, go to Next 176 and say, hey, I need a couple of bob from you. You have to convince them that your business is worth looking at in the first place. And I know you've got a very interesting story when it comes to your initial link to Next 176, albeit not a direct link at the time.
So Tremaine, who leads Next 176 from a venture standpoint, I'd gotten to know Tremaine in 2022. I'd put out a LinkedIn post about how to do one-on-ones better. Tremaine is a people's person. He's absolutely exceptional with his team. And he responded saying, hey, dude, can you please share your one-on-one template? And so I did. And he said, that's great. We should catch up at some stage. And we never caught up. And then I put out something else and he said, hey, let's catch up. At the time, he had just left Tencent. He was part of their ventures team. And we caught up and I sort of kept him on the GEM journey. He joined Next 176 and I would guess it was a couple of weeks after he reached out and said, I'm in London, can we go for lunch? And we went for lunch. We had a long lunch and straight afterwards he said, we're doing something together. And about 4 weeks later, we had a term sheet in hand. We then went through a complicated, lengthy process of internationalizing GEM, of figuring, we had a pretty bad structure that we had set up. And what's great when you work with someone through a lot of hurdles is you recognize when both are at their worst, you recognize will this partnership work? We were both at our worst. This was taking much longer than they'd wanted, much longer than we had wanted. Yet both parties came to the table and super excited. Yeah, great to have them on board. Tremaine's amazing and has continued to be a huge inspiration for me and for our team.
Simon, you and I off camera discussed the importance of story, and I want to go there, right? It's important for businesses to understand story because it is actually the bedrock on which their businesses are built. If you don't understand the story, the real story of your potential customer, how do you build a solution? If you don't understand the story of your staff, how do you keep them loyal? How do you keep them motivated? If you don't understand the value that you're creating and how to turn that into a story which emotionally engages people, then there's a missed opportunity. So how do you use story in GEM?
I think the biggest thing is we are obsessed with our customers. And if you think of who our customers actually are, they're the same people that me and you bump into every single day going about our normal lives. The person who you buy coffee from in the morning, the security guard at the entrance, the Uber driver going home at night. The reality is GEM touches everyone. And that means that your ability to understand the problems that people face and then figure out a way to solve for them is very powerful. Yesterday I was at Seattle, they're one of our customers, and I took a selfie with Sandy. She was there and she was upset because GM had put some restrictions on what she was doing. And it was amazing because I can actually talk to a customer when I'm buying a coffee. I can talk to a customer when I'm walking into this building. Storytelling, we're all just human. I'm just trying to figure out my own journey, as is everyone else. I definitely don't know what's happening. Like, I'm just learning. I'm trying to figure it out. And if I can learn from the people around me, I think it's very powerful. There is a very powerful way of learning from everyone in every sphere of life.
You certainly did ask me for some assistance around the storytelling side of things. I'm happy to do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to thank you for joining us. But what I'm going to do, just as a closing shot, and I think something that'll add value to everybody, is how we actually can use story in the business, why it's important, and also the fact that you don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of rands to collect story. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an insight into a beginner kit, just your phone and one or two other things to tell epic stories that people will sit up and listen to. So Simon, thank you very much for your time. But now just a quick insight into storytelling and how you can start this journey. I'll be taking you through this journey over the next couple of shows, but sit back and let's look at the value of story, and then just what are some of those basic things that you could use just to get the ball rolling. So why is storytelling so effective in business? Well, it's all in the science, really. When you hear facts, only the language center of your brain is ignited. But when you hear stories, your sensory, emotional, and your motor regions light up as if you were experiencing that story yourself. This process is called neurocoupling. It creates empathy, improves understanding, and allows you to engage with the story. So how do you go about telling your own business story? Well, there's a very simple formula known as the hero's journey. The one key rule is that you are never the hero. It should be your customer. Nobody likes someone who pats themselves on their own back going, "Ooh, look how great I am." That hero has aspirations that your audience can actually identify with emotionally. But there's something that gets in the way of your hero and his or her aspirations. That is the big problem. Now, along with that problem, you'll find a whole lot of anguish, a whole lot of pain that once again your audience can identify with. But along this journey, he or she meets their Yoda. They meet a guide who gives them a plan, gives them a call to action, and then the action begins to dig themselves out of the hole, and it all ends up in success. That is the basic framework you can use to actually tell your business story. So how easy is it to actually capture your own authentic stories in your business? Well, let's look at my setup. I use this Rode Wireless Micro, very small form factor. It's got a receiver with 2 transmitters that fits very comfortably into my pocket. If you have a look at the small form factor on this particular receiver, it fits into the bottom of my phone. And what I love about it is that I use the Rode Capture app and I'm able to control the volume and get the right type of sound level for my recordings. I can also get granular control of the cameras, because some of those iPhones, for example, have multiple cameras. I can get a granular control of those cameras on that Rode Capture app. Now, as you can see here, I've got 2 transmitters. Those transmitters basically clip on the guest, so you can interview 2 guests. You can either clip it, or it's got that magnetic clip, so you can actually hide it behind a t-shirt. But the bottom line is, it has got a very small form factor, and you can record anywhere. Great quality sound, great video, and you can get started just telling those stories that you need to. Well, there you go. Storytelling is important. This is why I'm weaving it into each and every show that I do. Don't be scared. Try. You probably will make mistakes, but who cares? The bottom line is you want to get the right story across to the right people. You must have a fabulous day, and I'll see you on Innovate Africa next week.